Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to share with you my imitative scud pattern that utilizes Semperfli straggle legs. For the thread I'm using Semperfli's Nano Silk 30 denier in olive, and then that matches up nicely to the Semperfli straggle legs in lichen. For the back of this bug, I'll be utilizing Togens Sow Scud back. This is in Sow Bug color. Really cool little stuff. For the wire ribs, I'm using UTC Gold. This is ultra wire in small size. And then for the tail and the breather section up front there, I'm using Nature Spirit, Ostrich Hurl, and this is a tan color. And then I did find these little iridescent fibers out of a bow just at a dollar store. You can utilize whatever you like for that, but it gives a nice sheen. And then for the underbody, some uni stretch in white. It just helps build up your base so you're not going through an entire spool of thread to get the shape of this going. For the bead, we're using Togens glass beads in an orange silverline color and pairing that with Togens competition scud hook in size 10. And then with this uni stretch, you'll use it just as you would any other thread loaded up in your bobbin, and then tie that in, trimming away the excess. And then as you get up to this glass bead, take some extra care to make sure that you get the underside of that bead. We'll clean it up a little bit here, but you want the top of that orange to shine through your material. It imitates a pregnant scud, which in my mind, I view it like a trout would. If you're having meat and potato dinner, that's their staple. That's the normal scuds. And then these pregnant scuds is that little bit of gravy that you're going to tempt them with. Irresistible in a lot of cases. They get a few extra calories, I'm sure, from the little pregnant egg sac that these scuds are carrying. And then once you're happy with that profile, give it a whip finish, trim that uni stretch away, and clean up any errant fibers there. And then now you'll come in with your nano silk. Just get that started at the front of this fly. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you're just going to work its way back to the tail end of this fly. Majority of this body we're going to be covering with the straggle leg material, but you do want to make sure that that thread goes underneath that glass bead so that the orange top portion of it does shine through. And at this point you can add your UTC ultra wire. Again, this one I'm using is size small, gold color. Then down for the tail section, I'm going to pick about 4 of these strands of ostrich feather. These ones are tan in color, and that's as close to an imitative representation as I can find. Looking at a lot of video footage and photos of these little scuds, and this stuff works really good for that. You want to save the barbed ends that you pull off the feather for the front of this, as they're really stiff and curled, and they look so much like the little breather feelers that these scuds have. And then with this scud back material, you want to round the corners of it a little bit and then just nip at it so that it looks a little bit frayed. And we're going to add this to those tail feathers, and it's going to give it a really cool little profile. It's going to move very lifelike in the water, and that's just going to go on the top side there. You want to be extra cautious just to position this nice and centered. Do a couple of loose wraps to get it started. That looks pretty bang on right there. And then you'll go and pull that back, give it a wrap in front of it, and that's going to start our nice scud back. Found these little iridescent fibers. They came in a birthday bow. There's some pearl ones, some purple ones, just at a dollar store. So look around. You can be very resourceful, but it does give you a very nice pearl underbody on that scud back. And then take maybe about 8 to 10 inches of the Semperfli straggle leg material and just capture that in at the tail end, and put that away in the material keeper, and we'll work at that later. You're going to want to grab these 4 fibers of ostrich feather and get those barbed ends standing upright, tie that in to secure it. Work your way back. That looks pretty good there. And then here's my little mono eye trick. You take some 20-pound monofilament, 30-pound, 40-pound, whatever you have. Get a little section in your bead tweezers. Trim away that excess. You want maybe just a couple of centimeters hanging out at each side. Take your lighter, singe these up. They'll curl back towards the tweezer and give you a nice round, tiny little mono eye. They do get a little bit of like a burnt look to them as well, so they look super lifelike. And while they're in the bead tweezer, it's much easier to capture them with your thread. Do a couple of wraps to get them just onto the hook, and then you can kind of get them straightened out and centered. And then I like to do some figure eights. Secure these very well. With this nano silk, you can do some very tight wraps without worrying about it breaking, and that'll lock it in really nice. Couple of whip finishes there. Get that bobbin out of the way, and there you go. There's the underbody of this. So now the fun part. We're going to make it look buggy. Wrap this straggle leg material upwards, and as you're seeing, you can just sweep those fibers down. I find working with this material helps if you wet your fingers and kind of position those fibers the way that you like them. And then once you get up to that glass bead, we do want the top portion of that to shine through. So we'll just do a couple of figure eights on the underside of that bead, and then continue building up your body. Let's get a little bit more bulk going in there. And then you'll want to taper off the closer that you get to the head. I like wrapping these eyes with just a couple of wraps, one across and then come back, and that way, so that you get a lot of that bugginess in around the eyes as well. These scuds have very, very small, tiny eyes that are kind of embedded in the right near the head of the bug. And then secure that straggle leg material a few wraps behind, a few wraps in front. This olive color is great because it blends in so well, and a 30 denier does not build up much bulk, so you can really get that secure. And then carefully with your razor scissors or micro tip scissors, nip the strand of that straggle leg away. And then here we're going to primp and preen all these fibers. Give it a little haircut as well, just the top, make sure that none of those errant fibers are sticking up. It's going to make it so much easier when you lay this scud back down and in front. That's looking pretty good right there. So now we're going to carefully fold the iridescent underbody, the tinsel, forward, as well as that scud back forward, and make sure that it's very centered. This is critical to perfectionists like me. You can get a couple of loose wraps on it and then make sure that that's happy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply some Golf Classic resin to that scud back. It's just going to help keep it in position. And then as you wrap your wire up, it's going to give it some really cool 3D looking space. That looks very happy like that. And then what I like to do is in front of those eyes, you can kind of use them as a thread guide to make sure that that scud back stays in place, and you get your thread locked in there with a whip finish. That's nice and secure. That's not going anywhere. So we'll get that resin going on this pattern. I'm just going to talk about how to fish this as effectively as possible. So I do prefer a clear camo intermediate line. There's a lot of great manufacturers out there. I've got Scientific Anglers, and that stuff is great. It casts like a dream, minimal memory in it, so it doesn't coil up on you. And yeah, it does the trick for fishing scuds. You can as well use a type 1-3 sink. Usually you'll be fishing these any waters, any shoals that are less than say 12 feet. So you just got to time your sink rate and get these scuds down to the appropriate depth. These patterns in particular are unweighted, but you can as well add a lead under wrap before you tie in that uni stretch underbody, and that'll help get this pattern down. But if you use the right fly line, you can get all different types of depths depending on what water column you're fishing. So once you have a thin layer of that classic resin on. Just give it a good zap with a UV light. Here I'm using Togens UV light. They work like a charm. And then that looks pretty happy. We're going to go ahead and wrap this this wire, UTC wire. So just with your bodkin, get those tail feathers up and under there. You'll want to do one wrap underneath. It'll help kind of lift that tail section and start you off in the right direction. And then near the tail section, you want to get these wrapped a little bit closer, and then you'll make them more sparse and some bigger sections around this middle. And as you go, you'll kind of figure out some techniques that work best for you. I like having my bodkin in one hand and then holding the wire in the other hand while I just free up some of those straggle legs. And you can pick them out afterwards as well, but I do find this method helps get a lot of that bugginess and legginess of these scuds underneath it. That's looking really good right there. And then as you get closer to the head, you can again get these wraps to be a little bit more concise, and then utilize these mono eyes to get that, that wire and your thread to really lock it into place. I'll do a couple of wraps in behind these eyes, and then for extra securing measure, I'll wrap the wire just in front of those eyes once. For this bug, you're going to be adding resin to finish it, but you do not want to add any resin to the underside of this, because you'll keep those legs moving nice and freely in the water as you retrieve it. And then just helicopter that wire out of the way and give a nice clean whip finish to lock it all in place behind those mono eyes. That'll help keep it nice and secure. Trim your thread off at this point, and then we're going to go ahead and closely trim the scud back material. And then as well, we'll get that little underbody tinsel out of there. Be careful not to trim off any of your front little breather feelers there. And then go ahead and pick out any loose errant fibers. You want them all kind of generally sweeping down underneath this fly. So you can pick it out until your heart's content. I get to be a little bit of a perfectionist with my ties, but the fish, they'll get the main profile. You'll be moving these things at a decent rate. The trick with scuds is to fish them with quick, abrupt, short, like 1 inch pauses, 1 inch strips, and then a pause. And usually on the pause, that's when these trout will come and hammer them. So quick 1 to 2 inch little strips, jerk, 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 and then pause, and then just get ready for a good take. You do want to upsize your tippet depending on the size of fish that you think you'll be catching, because they will hammer them very hard, very aggressively. They love these things. Now for the finishing touch, I'm going to apply a little bit more of this classic golf resin just to the back. What that's going to do is lock those wire rib sections in place, and then it's really going to make the back of this bug stand up, give it kind of a 3D look to it, and then you'll be able to see right through to that little egg sac, and with that iridescent ribbon tinsel, it'll shine through like crazy and catch a lot of their attention for sure. So smooth that out till your heart's content. Make sure that it's nice and even on either side of that scud back. As you get to the head and the tail of this bug, kind of just taper it so that it's a nice seamless flow, and then hit it with your UV light as well. Make sure that it's nice and cured properly. And guys, that is pretty much it. It's a little bit more of a detailed bug. Fish are going to love it. That orange bead really stands through. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to follow me this 15-minute video. I want to give a big shout out to Togens Fly Shop, Semperfly as well. Thank you guys so much for your support. And if you guys see me out on the water, please feel free to stop by and say hello. Thanks again for watching.